Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the motion to unseal the Delphi documents. I wasn't actually going to talk about this today, but I've had so many people messaging me saying, "What do you think? What do you think? Do you think there's something wrong with this whole case? Is Richard Allen really not guilty? Did he not act alone? What's going on here?" And so it seems to be a lot of confusion and a lot of guessing going on. And so, what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to read a few basic statements given by the prosecutor and the defense and try to help people understand what the possibilities are and what the probabilities are. What do these things mean? Or what could they mean? Now, I'm not an attorney. I do not work within the criminal justice system in that way. However, I've worked with police departments. I have worked with defense attorneys in the past. So I have a little bit of a clue about sometimes how things go when they're bringing a case to court, a good case or a bad case. So let me go on and tell you what the statements are that I think are interesting and what they could mean. Let me read. Here's from the news, people. Biggest news that came out out of this morning's hearing about the sealed records in the Delphi murder case is this statement by the prosecutor. We believe Richard Allen is not the only actor involved in this, which is a pretty big statement. A lot of people believe that has to be true because they've always thought, hey, this catfishing thing and these guys, they have to be involved. They have to have some connection to Allen. So either all three of them, and what I mean by that is Keegan Kline, Tony Kline, and Richard Allen all met up at the bridge and all assaulted these girls and killed them. Or one of the Klines hooked up with Allen at the bridge. Or somehow Richard Allen had access to that same site and had communications with Keegan Kline. And maybe that's where it comes. Some people think there's a huge sex ring. That I'm just going to dismiss right now. No, I don't believe that. And I have pointed out that I would say this, bridge guy, which we do not yet know is Richard Allen because he is still presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. I still believe bridge guy, and what I see happen with these girls, the little I know, it has the earmarks of a serial killer and does not, this kind of person does not usually like to work with other people. It's not usually a duo or a trio. And if Richard Allen is one of the involved, because he's a family man and all of that and known in town and he's lived there, it would be unlikely that he would have a partner in crime like this. It's not absolute. There are anomalies. And so I could be wrong on that. And people will say, well, here you go, Pat. There's information right here. They say he may not have acted alone. All right. Well, they didn't actually say may. They actually said, the prosecutor, we believe Richard Allen is not the only actor in this. So they're not saying may, which is interesting. So it would appear that they believe somebody else was involved. What's interesting to me about that is that they have not gone forth with any other charges against anybody else in the murders of these girls, which you would think they would have done about the same time that they got Richard Allen, and they haven't done that. So I don't know whether they absolutely know somebody else was involved or they believe. And when I say believe, we can believe things and then find out it's not so. I believe from experience that Richard Allen most likely worked alone. That's what I believe. But if I were working on this investigation and found there was other evidence to say, hey, this isn't true in this case, then what I believe goes out the window and something new comes in. I go, well, how about that? So I don't know, when the prosecutors say they believe, it doesn't mean they're correct. It just means that's what they say they believe. So just keep that in mind and as we go on through the rest of this. So the prosecutor told the judge, keeping the probable cause affidavit sealed is necessary to protect witnesses. I think the concept of witnesses is very interesting here. Who are the witnesses? So there's only two kinds of witnesses. Somebody who actually witnessed the homicides, or some other witness to something else that went on, and perhaps at Alan's home. Perhaps the witnesses are related to Alan or to friends or to neighbors. I don't know who these witnesses are and that they want to protect. But I get it. If they want to protect those witnesses, I'm all for protecting them. To prevent chaos. Well, we have seen chaos in this case for years. People just going insane about this. So I think they've got a good point there too. And to allow police to continue their investigation. So they're basically saying the investigation is not over yet. We're still working on it, which again is interesting because do they have enough they believe on Richard Allen, but not enough on somebody they think is connected, and they just, while they're waiting for the trial on him, they're just going to hope they can dredge up whatever they need to link the others to the crime, if there are others? I don't know, but they're continuing their investigation. They also may be trying to get some more information on Allen to make the case stronger. I do not know, but that's what they say. What's interesting about the fact that they say that they should keep the probable cause affidavit protected. On the other hand, the Indiana State Police Superintendent Doug Carter said the investigation, while far from complete, also says that unsealing the court records, the court documents, wouldn't hurt the integrity of the investigation. Wow. So that's fascinating. So Doug Carter, who, I've had some issues with the things he says to the public, and this may just be another one of them, but he actually says, I don't think unsealing this would cause a problem with the investigation. He also says that the probable cause affidavit, and if you don't know what a probable cause affidavit is, you have to have enough to arrest somebody. You have to have probable cause. You can't just arrest somebody because I don't like you. I think you did it. You have to have enough where it's solid enough that you can arrest them and then prosecute them. Sometimes this goes to a grand jury hearing, and the grand jury will agree that there's probable cause. Often, the whole thing about grand juries, of course, is that, as I always say, they'll get a ham sandwich on that one. They'll say, okay, yeah, sure. They go along with the police almost all the time. So, yeah, they didn't indict a ham sandwich. So that is fairly meaningless. But generally speaking, a probable cause is sufficient enough to have pretty good belief. Now, having said that, I've seen cases where the probable cause is crap. And a person, and I think I will link that below. I forgot the last time I said I'd link it below. But I'm going to link below the case of Andrea Cincotta, because a man named Chris Johnson, he was arrested. And it took a year to go to prosecution. And in 1 hour, the jury found him not guilty. And the probable cause, I never saw it in that, but I'm like, I kept saying, what in the heck do they possibly have that's sufficient enough to arrest him and go forward with this? And apparently there wasn't enough. So I will say there could possibly be a shabby probable cause here. And so maybe there's a point there, maybe, and that's why people are saying maybe Allen isn't guilty. I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, so Carter says the probable cause affidavit stands on its own. So Carter's saying there's enough in there that even further investigation doesn't matter. There's enough in that probable cause affidavit to say, hey, we got the right guy. All right, now let me go for a couple more interesting things on this. All right. Also, the prosecutor said the public has an absolute right to the information, but at what cost? This is still a very ongoing investigation. The prosecutor also presented the judge with a statement from the lead state police investigator and a letter from Libby German's grandmother to support his request to keep records sealed. I don't know how influential that should be. The prosecutor asked the judge to keep them sealed, or if they're released, to at least keep the names of the witnesses private. And I think the biggest issue here is the witnesses, because they don't want the witnesses frightened, attacked, harassed, all of these kinds of things. I think they want those witnesses very, very well kept under wraps until the trial. That's my belief on that. And they may be right about that in this very, very crazy case that has taken over everybody's mind. Now let's go to Richard Allen's attorney. He says some interesting things. Richard Allen's attorney told the judge releasing the documents would not create public harm to anyone or jeopardize the case. He said it would actually do the opposite. Secrecy involved in the case has simply heightened public interest. Okay, I'm going to disagree with that. Yeah, sure, it heightens it. But this is so heightened anyway. How much higher do you have to go? But that's what our defense attorney is going to say. And by continuing that pattern, we're just perpetuating the problem. Well, the case, I think, is supposed to go to court like in March. So we are talking about December, January, February, or at least 3 to 4 months. So, but hey, if it's important to the case to keep things sealed, I'm not going to get into all the rights issues on these things. Because a lot of people have come up with all the legal issues, and I'm not going to go there because that's not my thing. But 3 or 4 months, could we put up with that? Well, as a public, absolutely. We want the right person to be convicted of this crime. We don't want to jeopardize a trial. So I don't see the huge problem in patience on our part. Now, outside the courtroom, Andrew Baldwin, defense attorney for Richard Allen, said, "Our client is the wrong guy." And this is why people are saying, oh my God, is it the wrong guy? It's a defense attorney. They always say it's the wrong guy, even if they know it's absolutely the right guy. That's their job, is to, sadly, which is one of the problems with our system, is they'll defend anybody, no matter how guilty they are, and they will come up with all kinds of excuses why they're not guilty, even if the evidence is overwhelming. So even if the guys told them in private during interviews, yeah, I did it. Okay, don't say that, dude. Let's see how we can say it differently so that you don't go down for this. So defense attorneys will always say their client is innocent. Obviously, that's what their job is according to our system. Then he says this. He said the sealed probable cause affidavit is flimsy. And there's quotes around that, flimsy. And that you expect more than what I saw. All right, now people are saying, oh my God, they didn't have DNA. They didn't have anything strong. They're just, what is this? Well, again, this is a defense attorney. He's going to say every bit of evidence is flimsy. I don't care what that evidence is. He's going to say it's flimsy. Even if they had DNA at the scene connecting Allen, his blood was at the scene, for example. Let's say he got cut in the process and there was some blood at the scene and it was his blood. Even then, the defense attorney will say, that's flimsy. That's his job. So unless we see the probable cause affidavit, we won't know if it really is flimsy or not. So Baldwin said, this one makes me kind of laugh though, Allen professed his innocence to him and did it emotionally. Now that's proof right there. He was emotional. I'm innocent. I'm innocent. Therefore he is. Now he may be, but that certainly isn't particularly good information. Okay, now, as part of Allen's petition to be let out on bail, he claims that, quote, because neither the proof of guilt is evident, nor the presumption of guilt is strong. All right, let me stop here. So he's claiming in the probable cause, there is neither proof of guilt that's evident. Evident to whom? Evident to the defense team, or evident to the prosecution, or evident to the people if this case goes to court? What does he mean by not evident? Because obviously when you go fight these cases, you say everything isn't evident. Again, that's a defense thing. Nor the presumption of guilt strong. Again, he's got to say that. What's he going to say? Oh yeah, the defense attorney comes out and says, well, I have looked at the probable cause and I think we ought to make it public. But I'm going to let you know, the proof of guilt is really evident. And man, the presumption of guilt, that's super strong. What defense attorney is going to say that? So just because he says that doesn't make it true. So keep that in mind. Allen is asking for the court to either reduce his bail to a reasonable amount or to release him on his own recognizance. Well, if he's being accused of the brutal murder of 2 teenage girls, I think that there should be absolutely zero bail. His own recognizance, again, the murder of 2 teenage girls, if he's being accused of that, he's a dangerous human being. Now, the theory is he going to leave town, run away? He says he doesn't have money, he doesn't even have money for an attorney, so he's got to beg the court for one. Could he disappear? Of course he can disappear if he wants to. And what does he have to keep him there? His child is grown up. I don't know about his wife's feelings about him right now. He could slip away, disappear. Sure he could. And if he did kill these two girls, he's severe danger to any community he goes through. And sometimes if somebody's on the run, not only are they a danger in that they could slide back into a community and people won't know who he is and he could commit these crimes again, but sometimes a person who's on the run will go on a spree because they're like, hey, I got to do whatever I got to do. I need a car, I need money. And they'll go on a spree and they will kill people on the spree until the police catch up with them. So they can be very dangerous people. I see no reason to release Alan at all. Next, this is really interesting. Alan's attorney, Andrew Baldwin, said in response, if you read the probable cause affidavit, it does not mention anything about any other person. That's interesting. Now, mind you, all right, when you do probable cause, you may not want to show everything, show your whole hand if you're still working on stuff. So they may only have gone with, okay, Alan did this. And this is the evidence we have, Alan did this, and not mention anybody else. But if that's true in the probable cause, there's nothing in the affidavit, there's nothing saying maybe somebody else helped him, like he was partnered with somebody, anything that he was not working alone. It's not in the probable cause affidavit, which I think is interesting. And lastly, let's see. I want to point out, could they have the wrong person completely? Would they, after almost 6 years, would they take the risk of going after Richard Allen with the amount of publicity they have on this guy and be completely wrong? Can it happen? Yes, it can. I have seen police departments put the wrong guy in prison. Certainly we have people getting out who are found not guilty after a long period of time and get appeals and they're let out. Oftentimes that's just technicality and they really are guilty, but there are still some innocent people. And as I pointed out with the Andrea Cincotta case, the link I'll have below, the prosecution was dreadful. They had almost nothing on him. I've never even figured out how they took him to court, and yet they did. And they bombed in court, and he was found not guilty. Why did they even do that is the question, where they had such poor, quote, evidence. I still don't know. It boggles my mind because it was so dreadful. It wasn't like, there's a lot there, but I don't know if it's enough. No, there was nothing there. And I was just astounded. So can a prosecution take a case to court, which is garbage? Yes, it can happen. So I can't say it can happen. However, the case I'm talking about, the Andrea Cincotta case, had very little publicity about it, and very, very little. I think there's going to be a documentaries done on this case now because of the fascination of it. Hopefully I'll be part of that documentary, so I'm able to talk about this case. But at the time, it was a Virginia case, and the Washington Post was like the only one that did anything on it, a few articles on it, and some stuff on Reddit. And other than that, dead silence on the case as Chris Johnson, who was arrested and awaiting trial for a year. It's a long time. And his life was on hold, essentially. And his name was ruined for the entire year. And then finally it goes to court and he is found not guilty. And there's another article. It's about this big in one paper. And that's it. Interesting that some of the networks have picked up interest in this case. But if they hadn't, this case will be totally unknown. So the prosecution can pretty much steam ahead, But this case, oh my God, This case is so huge. Would they take the chance? Really, really, would they take the chance of going after, as I point out, they have Keegan Kline, who people believe is involved. They have Tony Kline, Keegan's father, who's a lot of people think is a shady character. They've already been out there as people, what about those guys? You got Ron Logan, who's dead and can't complain. Would you go after this guy who works in town, has no criminal record, and is a married guy and a family man? Would you go after this guy after all this time and screw this up? I question that you would be that stupid or that desperate, because you could wait a little longer and you could stitch up somebody a lot better than this guy. So do I believe they likely have the right guy? Yes, I do. And by the way, there's a recent case, and pay attention to this, because this is what this investigation would be slammed with. In Columbus, Ohio, an Ohio man just won $45 million in a civil lawsuit against a police department and detective whose actions led to his wrongful conviction and more than 20 years behind bars. Dean Gillespie sued Miami Township Police and former detective Scott Moore for suppressing evidence and tainting eyewitness identifications in the 1991 rape and kidnapping case against Gillespie. Now, I haven't researched heavily into this case to find out whether there's a good reason why they actually did arrest and convict him. I don't know what these technicalities are and whether they were shady as all that, but maybe they were. For whatever reasons, yes, he was found. He ended up winning a $45 million lawsuit. My God, can you just think? Sorry, my nose is just driving me crazy. Oh my gosh. In the middle of my show. Alan, can you imagine if it's not him, whether he operated with somebody else or not, if it's not him, can you imagine the lawsuit? Holy God. If it's not him, this man is going to be very, very wealthy, because you can guarantee that they're going to be slammed with a massive lawsuit, just massive. So I think in this case, because of the scrutiny they're under and all the media attention and the other, I say, shadier people at the point in time he was arrested that they could have pointed a finger at, especially Ron Logan, who the girls were on his property and he's dead and he has some squirrely behaviors. So, hey, just say we think it was Ron Logan and let it go. They're after him. There's got to be reasonable evidence. Now, I don't know if it's solid DNA evidence or there's a whole bunch of other stuff all put together which says it's him. But I have a problem believing that they're going forth with such a weak case that it makes no sense for him to even be charged. So why do I think they're keeping this under wraps? Maybe they really are still looking at somebody else. Maybe the prosecution thinks there could be somebody else, but doesn't really know. And until he goes to court, they're going to keep, looking around and seeing whether they've got somebody they can actually link and really prove is also involved in this crime. They may just say that crap to protect the witnesses, because maybe the witnesses are family, people who know him very close by, and they don't want to taint them. Who knows? I mean, it's hard to say. Maybe the Kleins are witnesses. I don't know. But there are some reasons why they're trying to keep wraps on this case, more so than just people going, bonkers over what they find out. But the defense attorney is going to want you to think that the reason they're keeping it under wraps is because the case is so weak, they don't want you to know it. And I don't buy the defense's line on that one. So that's my thoughts on this. And we're going to have to wait and see what the judge comes up with, what the judge determines is the right thing to do. And then we'll see if the judge determines we're going to be able to see some of the probable cause, we will. And if the judge says no, we won't. And we'll have to continue to be patient. For most of us out here in the world, those weren't our daughters and our sisters, so for the families and their friends, and a lot of them want this stuff to be kept quiet because they're afraid of anything going wrong with this case. I respect their wishes way more than I respect the wishes of the public. So unless it violates the law, and if it violates the law, yes, that shouldn't happen. If that's, and I say I don't. It's very, very technical when you get into the legal issues here, but so let's see what happens. Let's have a little bit of patience, and we'll see where we're at. If this is your first time to my channel, please do subscribe to the channel, like this video, click on the notifications, and find out more in the future about what I say on this case. And also, you can check my playlist for all the other cases I have analyzed. This is an educational channel for profiling and crime scene analysis, and I hope people learn from this. And so I will see you next time. If there's anything more to talk about on this case, I will be back, but I'll wait to see if there's something important. Till next time.